The air in the LeClaire, Iowa, courtroom was thick with tension, the kind that makes your skin prickle and your breath catch. The wooden benches creaked under the weight of spectators, their whispers a low hum that buzzed like static. At the center of it all sat Ethan Caldwell, the charismatic star of Treasure Hunters, a reality show that had turned dusty antiques into primetime gold. His flannel shirt was replaced by a stiff suit, his trademark grin gone, replaced by a tight-lipped stare that didn't waver, even as the prosecutor paced before him. Ethan's hands, usually steady when prying open rusted barn doors, now fidgeted with the edge of the defense table. Across the room, the gallery was a patchwork of familiar faces, crew members, antique dealers, and fans who'd driven hours to witness the unthinkable. Ethan, the man who could charm a widow into selling a century-old tractor, was on trial for murder. The victim was Nate Harper, Ethan's former co-star, the gruff, lovable half of Treasure Hunters who'd left the show 2 years prior after a public falling out. Nate's death had been reported as a heart attack, a tragic but unsurprising end for a man who'd battled health issues for years. But the autopsy told a different story. Lethal levels of a prescription heart medication in his system, far beyond anything his doctor had ordered. The small town of LeClaire, where the show's antique shop was a tourist magnet, was rocked when Ethan was arrested, his wrists cuffed as cameras flashed outside his storefront. The headlines screamed betrayal. Treasure hunter turned killer, and TV star's dark secret exposed. The prosecution claimed Ethan had poisoned Nate, driven by jealousy over Nate's plans to launch a rival show and greed to seize control of their shared empire. The prosecutor, a wiry man named Daniels with a voice like gravel, stood before the jury, holding up a clear plastic evidence bag. Inside was a small amber bottle, its label peeled off, but the residue inside matched the drug found in Nate's body. This bottle, Daniels said, his eyes sweeping the jury, was found in a locked drawer in Mr. Caldwell's office. His fingerprints are on it. His alone. The courtroom stirred, a ripple of gasps spreading. Ethan's attorney, a seasoned woman named Margaret Voss, leaned close and whispered something, but Ethan's gaze stayed fixed on the bottle, his jaw tight. Daniels continued, painting a picture of a man whose on-screen camaraderie with Nate masked a simmering resentment. Mr. Caldwell built Treasure Hunters from nothing, Daniels said. He was the face, the charm, the deal-maker. But when Nate Harper announced plans to return with his own show, threatening to steal the spotlight, Ethan couldn't let that happen. He saw Nate as a liability, a thief of his legacy. The evidence was damning. Security footage from Nate's rural farmhouse showed Ethan's truck pulling into the driveway at 1 a.m., hours before Nate was found unresponsive. A grainy still from the video was projected on a screen, Ethan's silhouette unmistakable under the porch light. Text messages, recovered from Nate's phone, showed Ethan inviting himself over that night, claiming he wanted to bury the hatchet. The 911 call, played for the jury, was Ethan's voice, steady but clipped. I stopped by to check on Nate. He's not breathing. Send help. Paramedics found Nate sprawled on his kitchen floor, a spilled glass of water nearby, his pulse gone. At first, it seemed like a heart attack, but the toxicology report revealed the truth. Nate had been dosed with enough medication to stop his heart within hours. The prosecution called a parade of witnesses. A Treasure Hunters producer testified about Ethan's behavior after Nate left the show, describing how he'd grown obsessed with controlling the brand. Ethan would snap if anyone mentioned Nate, she said. He'd say, "This is my show now. Nate's out." It wasn't just business. It felt personal. A local antique dealer, who'd known both men for years, recounted overhearing Ethan at a flea market, muttering about Nate's comeback being a betrayal. He said Nate was ungrateful, that he'd forgotten who made him a star, the dealer said, his voice low. The most chilling testimony came from Nate's sister, Clara, who took the stand with red-rimmed eyes. She described finding a notebook in Ethan's shop, left behind after a filming session, with scrawled entries about Nate. One read, "He thinks he can waltz back and take it all. He's wrong. I'll make sure of it." Clara's voice broke as she read the words aloud, and the jury shifted uncomfortably, some glancing at Ethan, whose face remained unreadable. Ethan's defense hinged on their friendship, a bond forged over decades of scouring barns and attics for forgotten treasures. Voss argued that the bottle was planted, the texts misinterpreted, the footage inconclusive. Ethan Caldwell was Nate Harper's brother in all but blood, she told the jury. He visited Nate that night to reconcile, not to harm. The real tragedy is that someone else took advantage of Nate's vulnerability. She pointed to Nate's health struggles, suggesting the medication could have come from an unscrupulous dealer or even a mistake by Nate himself. But the defense's case faltered when Daniels presented Ethan's internet history, recovered from his laptop, searches for undetectable heart medication overdose, and how to stage a heart attack. The courtroom fell silent as the prosecutor clicked through the slides, each query a nail in Ethan's defense. The trial stretched over 5 weeks, each day peeling back layers of a friendship turned toxic. A former crew member, a camera operator named Jess, testified about the tension on set during the final season Nate filmed. Ethan would undermine Nate in front of the crew, she said. He'd make jokes about Nate's weight, his health, knowing it got under his skin. Nate tried to laugh it off, but you could see it hurt. Jess paused, her voice catching. When Nate left, Ethan told me, "Good riddance. I'm the show now." The prosecution used this to argue motive. Ethan saw Nate's potential return as a threat to his fame, his wealth, his identity. Financial records showed Ethan had taken out a $3 million insurance policy on Nate, naming himself as beneficiary, and had been quietly transferring shared assets into his own name. This wasn't just jealousy, Daniels thundered. This was greed. Ethan Caldwell wanted it all. The emotional peak came when Lila, the show's longtime researcher and Ethan's confidant, took the stand. Her testimony was reluctant, her hands trembling as she spoke. "I saw Ethan with Nate's medication once," she admitted. "It was in his trailer, months before Nate died. I asked why he had it, and he said he was helping Nate manage his prescriptions. I believed him." She looked at Ethan, her eyes pleading, but he wouldn't meet her gaze. After Nate died, Ethan was different. He didn't cry. He didn't talk about Nate. He just kept asking about the shop, the inventory, the contracts. The gallery buzzed, and Ethan's attorney objected, but the damage was done. Lila's words painted a man more concerned with profit than loss. When Ethan finally took the stand, the room held its breath. He spoke softly, his voice steady but hollow. "Nate was my best friend," he said. "We fought, sure, but I'd never hurt him. I went to his house to talk, to fix things. I found him like that, and I called for help." But under cross-examination, Daniels pounced. "You called 911 3 hours after arriving, Mr. Caldwell. What were you doing all that time?" Ethan faltered, his eyes darting to the jury. "I was trying to wake him up. I didn't know what to do." Daniels held up the notebook, reading aloud. "Nate's a liability. He'll ruin everything." Ethan's face flushed. "That was about the show, not his life," he snapped. "You don't know what it's like to build something and have someone try to take it." The outburst hung in the air, and Voss called for a recess, her face grim. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the foreman's voice was steady. "Guilty of first-degree murder." The courtroom erupted. Ethan shot to his feet, his chair scraping the floor. "You don't get it," he shouted, his voice raw. "Nate was going to destroy me. He was going to take everything." The bailiffs moved in, but Ethan shoved the table, sending papers flying. Spectators screamed, some scrambling for the exits. He grabbed a gavel from the table, swinging it wildly, striking a bailiff's arm before 3 officers tackled him. "I made treasure hunters," he roared as they cuffed him. "It was mine." Lila, in the gallery, covered her face, sobbing, while Nate's sister clutched her husband, her face pale. Ethan's tirade continued as they dragged him out. "Nate betrayed me. He was nothing without me." The aftermath was chaos. The History Channel pulled Treasure Hunters from its lineup, sponsors fled, and the antique shop became a ghost town, its windows papered over. Nate's family vowed to preserve his legacy, filing lawsuits against the network for ignoring Ethan's behavior. Crew members were divided, some defending Ethan's passion, others haunted by his betrayal. A local reporter, covering the trial, wrote of the surreal scene. A man who'd spent his life unearthing treasures had buried his own future in a moment of rage. Ethan's outburst, replayed on every news channel, became the final nail, destroying any hope of appeal. In LeClaire, the town mourned not just Nate, but the illusion of a friendship that had captivated millions, now shattered by greed and a single, fatal choice.